Greetings and welcome to the introduction to astronomy. In this week's exploration of the solar system, we are going to talk about the SOHO spacecraft and how it revolutionized our understanding of our sun. So what is SOHO? Well, that stands for the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, and it was launched in December of 1995 on a 2-year mission. So that was the original plan. But as of my recording of this, we are nearly 30 years past that. And the spacecraft is still going and is still planned to run through at least the end of this year, giving it a full 30-year mission from the original 2 that were planned. Now, the whole idea of this and the purposes behind SOHO were to study a number of things and to really understand our sun better. And that included studying the outer layers and specifically the solar wind and how these affect Earth. Not only those, but we also wanted to understand the interior of the sun. And a way this is done is through helioseismology. And if you know seismology, study of earthquakes in the interior of the Earth here. And that's how we learn about the interior of the Earth. Well, we can look at variations in how the sun works to try to learn more about the interior and regions that we cannot see directly. So some of the findings here that we got from SOHO included our first look into the convective zone of the sun. Now, the convective zone here is actually under the region of the sun that we see. We see the photosphere with the sunspots present over here. And down below that is the convective zone. And SOHO was able to give us our first look into that region, which is where the sunspots are beginning to form. So it's giving us a better understanding of how those work. And as we find, sunspots are a big sign of solar activity and affect our understanding and what happens here on Earth. So giving us that first look into the convective zone was one thing that was quite important. Now, that wasn't the only thing that it looked at. We also saw the solar wind. And here we see an image from SOHO from 2001 showing many of the streamers going out from the sun. Now, you can see that the sun itself, of course, is blocked out here. We don't want to look directly at the sun, as that is far too bright and would overwhelm anything else that we really want to look at. But we're getting a better idea of the solar wind and how that works, and in fact different types of solar winds and how that varies over the solar cycle. Now, the solar wind can also affect us here on Earth. And that's one of the other things that SOHO has helped us with, is understanding space weather. So here we see a combination. We see the sun off to the left with the various layers, and we see the Earth to the right. Now, of course, this is not to scale, but the whole idea is that things like coronal mass ejections, as we see here on the right hand side, a coronal mass ejection ejected toward Earth can affect us and can cause issues. And that is what we call space weather. As the material from the sun streams out towards Earth, is buffeted by the magnetic field. We often see that as aurora. But in very strong storms, especially very strong flares and very strong coronal mass ejections, they can deform that magnetic field and therefore affect things on Earth. And that coronal mass ejection would affect electronics here on Earth, for example. And a sufficiently strong coronal mass ejection could actually fry some electronics and can affect communication satellites during particularly severe solar storms. So SOHO has been able to help us with giving us more warning as to when these storms could be coming. Now, one of the other things not specifically related to the sun that was studied by SOHO would be comets. Now, that's because comets actually pass close to the sun often and that would allow us to be able to see more comets. So SOHO has actually discovered thousands of comets from people looking through its data and seeing the comets as they pass close to the sun and come out in the images. So while SOHO didn't specifically set out to do this, it is one of the extra benefits that came out from the SOHO spacecraft. Now let's go ahead and finish up what we've looked at here and head to our summary. And what we've looked at today is that the SOHO was launched on a 2-year mission to study our sun. And that mission is now going on nearly 30 years. It revolutionized our understanding of both the interior and outer layers of the sun. And in addition was responsible for discovering thousands of comets. So that concludes this discussion of the SOHO spacecraft. We'll be back again next week for another exploration of the solar system video. So until then, have a great day, everyone, and I will see you in class.